Okay, we pick it up with the 7th chapter here with the Hiliger of Shmuel Kamenetsky, learning the Bedika Lamisha Noisei Anga, one who leaves, Shanaisei Amibesai. Says the Hiliger Kovetz Halachos, Avle Dir Chadash Yudgim L'Chayev Levdoig Mishav Dir Chadash Yudgim Nisan. Someone who moves into a new house on the 13th of Nisan, Vadir Minuka Hitev, and it's perfectly clean, V'lachal Shab Chametz, and you never eat their Chametz. Einoi Chayev Levdoig Klal Yudalad. He's no Chayev Bedika. It's like an area they never brought in chametz. The 10 pieces of bread are not going to help. You have to eat a meal there. In footnote number 1, over here, he brings down from Shmuel that putting in the 10 pieces of bread is not going to help. And he says, usually, as we know, Shmuel himself doesn't put out 10 pieces of bread. He says it's like a place whose if it's a clean house, you don't need the 10 pieces, and even without it, you're allowed to make a bracha. But over here, it's not just that it's clean. It's like a makom shemach nisba chametz. He says very interestingly in the bottom, the workers. We all know the workers eat as they work. He says that's not enough. Masha kablanim ochlu sham einoi klum. Okay, we continue with Siv Beis. Siv Beis is very relevant. Anyone who has a second dwelling, whether it's a bungalow, whether it's apartments, etc., elsewhere. Someone goes upstate in the summer, so they have a bungalow. The Fnei Pesach they left 30 days before. They don't plan on going there. The Kaim lunch the Chayev lived like after Medina Shalisuchal Bittel. Be'etzem says Rav Shmuel you can be Sevacham Bittel. Yeshlivcha Chametz Kodem Pesach you should do Amachiras Chametz. And he quotes in the footnote number Gimel over here that Ramesha says, let's say you forgot, your Chametz becomes Aser Beha No. Says Rav Shmuel, even if someone doesn't have someone has the minig normally not to sell chametz gomer, still he's allowed to in such a scenario to be soimech and sell chametz gomer. He says in this such a scenario, it's like an einus he wants to learn. He says because you can't get there, you don't plan on going there. It's like an einus. Therefore, even the one who's normally makbid, let's say someone knows they have a bungalow upstate, they have an apartment in a different city, a different country, and there's chametz there, what are they supposed to do? Even if they're normally makbid on chametz kamer, they could sell without a problem. A very classical case. You leave within 30 days, you're going away for Yom Tov, etc. It's better to check yourself than having a shliach check bizman. And he says, reasons you check better. So the night before you leave, you do a bedikas chametz. We're going to see, and I don't know, he's not going to, I don't know, I thought he was going to chop every case here. I see he doesn't really. But a lot of it's going to be totally in the lamaisa if you're going to end it with another dwelling. Lamashal, let's give one case. Someone leaves, I'm sorry? No, okay, we'll read it. Not really. That only chops one case. In Dalit he says, but in the Sushim Yadalit. So if the children are going to be by their parents and they're already going to be there at the night of the Bedika, so here he says it in. Here he says, let's say you had your own apartment, and let's say you sold your whole apartment, whatever you did. So the night before you left, he says you should do a Bedika. Now, that itself is questionable, because if you sold the whole thing, there's no reason to do a Bedika if you sold the whole thing. Could be he's not into that, I don't know. It doesn't really explain over here. But when you get to your parents' house, now it's a big shiloh. And the reason is, I'll just explain one word of background. There's a fascinating footnote over here. The one word of background is that if someone owns a dwelling within 30 days of Yom Tov, you have a chiyuv bedika. You're not allowed to be mevatel that chiyuv. So if you go and you say, okay, but I'm going to sell my apartment on the 13th, and therefore I obviate the entire chiyuv bedika, that's nice, but you were just mevatel your mitzvah. So what you're supposed to do is fulfill your mitzvah elsewhere. How do you fulfill your mitzvah elsewhere? So says Rav Shmuel, he holds you could check the room that you have in your parents' house. Now the problem is, and many places can handle and discuss, but 1 second, you don't have a kinyan, it's not your room. And different places say, yeah, you should write a shtar with your father-in-law. Another place can argue back. And they say, come on, even if he writes a shtar, it's pointless. And what, no one ever walked into your room? So some people say, yeah, when I go to my parents, I lock the door, no one goes in. Other people say, shkach, you locked the door, you didn't realize when you left. The shviger came, she all knocked the door, because she left, extra towels were in there, or someone had whatever in there. So they want to say, is that really called your place or not? So Shmuel has a completely different mahalach. He says, yes, you could check that room, and you can even make a bracha. Why? He says, unless it's Becheskes Badik, which again, he already translated means that no food was brought in there, not that it was cleaned. If it's a room that people eat in, and if it's the room you go to, you're like, my mother doesn't know, but when I'm here for Shabbos, I'm eating in there, so she thinks, whatever, okay, good. Right there, don't worry, hopefully she won't watch here, get us all in trouble. So, it's not Becheskes Baduk. So then you can make a bracha. Afilu b'li kabbalas kinyan al cheder. V'afilu lo yachlu chamish al cheder, even if you don't eat there right now. Kim shacheder miyuchad lahem. In the footnote over here, footnote hey, fabulous and long and lengthy footnote, which he says has nothing to do with the kinyan. Shmuel's of the opinion has to do with hishtamshus, and therefore, if this is a room that you're the one being mishtamish, and he says it has to do with the fact that number one, what's the whole concern? The whole concern is that shami avalachlai, you might come to eat the chametz. So you're the one staying in the room, so you have the obligation to make sure there's not chametz that you might come to eat. Number two, he proves from a shamish of a basic Knesses that the duty is upon him to check, and he's allowed to make a bracha, and therefore he says so too. You don't need a kinyan. You're in that room, and you're allowed to check that room. So that takes care of a lot of cases. You are correct. That let's say someone has their own apartment, a married child, married person, and they're going away for Yom Tov. They're going parents, in-laws, back and forth. So what could they do? They could sell their apartment as of Yud Gimel, meaning they're not going to be there at the Zman of the Bedika. Now their apartment has nothing to do with them. When the Zman Bedika comes, it belongs to the guy. What do they do for themselves? Either in the parents' house, they go and they check the room, which is an important thing anyways. Included in your room, by the way, is your personal bags, which is a good thing to double check about all those things you do there in Erev Yom Tov. They still have them in here. Let's check. No, the kids got to the candy. Baruch Hashem. The Katzman, your bracha was mikuyam. Thank you. So if you didn't say that, obviously it would still be there. But either way, that's what you could do. So that takes care of all the cases that you're not going to be home on the Leil, the deek in your parents' house. Yes?
Question in regards to Gimel, which is similar to the case saying now. If you're selling your apartment, then what would you be doing during the Bedika? Everything gets numbers. What are you checking for?
In which case, you're going to be home in the Bedika?
Either Gimel, is this Gimel, or the case you just mentioned?
Again, so again, it's slow. If you're going to be, so far we have not discussed the case that you're selling and you're going to be home. All we have been discussed is a case where you're mechayiv your bedika, so you have a bedika before you leave your house, you check your house. What does it mean you check your house? In a normal scenario, you check where you put away your chametz. He's not talking about a case you're selling your whole house. He's talking about a case you put away your chametz, you check, you make sure the chametz is in the kitchen, you make sure there's no chametz where it's not supposed to be, and that's a real bedika with a real mechira. In Sifdalid, he spoke about the fact that kids going to their parents, they can check in the room. The case that you're talking about is you don't want to clean anything. You want to leave all the garbage ever in the house, in the drawers, in the pockets, and everything, and you want to deal with that. That's a different case. So the only way you're going to be able to do that case is if you sell everything. You have to sell everything, and then you can't use the house.
Let's say the case that what do you do if I'm home in $1, right? So I'm going to sell everything besides for that.
So that's a different shtick. He didn't talk about that yet. We'll get there afterwards. He's not discussed that. Okay, if you mentioned, I'll just mention, there's a way what you could do is you could sell the whole house minus one area. So then that one area is never being sold. So if let's say Lamashal in this room, if I say I'm selling the whole room aside for this table. So I have bailas in this table. I own this table. The guy cannot touch this table. In the shtar, it says chutz except for this 4x4 table. Great. Guess what? Do I have to check this table? 100%. God forbid, if you leave something on this table, you're over Nisa Deraisa. It's your table, the Gansi Yantif. So that's the way that always, if you're going to be home the night of the 14th, that's one way that we work on getting out of it. Let's continue. What if you don't know? Okay, so then we have to figure it out. I mean, so a lot of people say that they're going to go away. They might want to come home. That's the classical. I want to go home to shower. So the answer then is, if you're going to clean, it's one thing. If you're not going to clean, then the answer is you sell the whole house. Minus your walkway to the shower. And that area is not sold. So then you don't sell. So then you don't sell. You don't sell, and then you have a chiyuv v'dika, then you can be yotzei zayin your chiyuv v'dika. According to Shmuel, you don't have a problem. You're either yotzei zayin your chiyuv v'dika in your house, or yotzei zayin your chiyuv v'dika thing. Siv hey, hanichlas beis b'olam zav lePesach. Someone goes to a hotel. Kigoyin b'la yudalid b'yom yudalid b'emsi mei Pesach yivdak v'dika kalo. Rav Shmuel holds that if you go away for a night of Pesach, when you show up, you have to check then. Ba'avara ba'alma u'b'li bracha. Daha manikin hate, but you know your case is really not pashit. We'll talk about it afterwards. It's very, very not pashit. If you want to say I don't know where I'm going to be, well, you need to know where you're going to be, because if you're going to be home, you have a chiyuv b'dik in your house. If you're not going to be home, then you want to make sure you take care of your chiyuv b'dik in your house. So it could be if you decide not to be home before you leave, right? So it could be before you leave, you would do the b'dika. That's the way to do it, and then you fulfill. Yeah, let's say if you end up leaving 2 days earlier, but then you don't own it. That's a different story. You don't own it. Different story. That's again. Those are practical cases. Let's learn some text together. Say if hey, someone goes to a hotel the night of the 14th, the day of the 14th of MC May Pesach during Pesach. So what do? You have to check, but you don't make a bracha. They clean it well. And it's karuv to say that it's chesed badik. Now this is, I don't want to say it's not the conventional psak, but many don't do this. A lot of people, they go away for Yom Tov. They don't show up an Erev Yom Tov. Tonight, this year, Yom Tov is on a Monday night. So a lot of people don't, if they're flying somewhere, they don't land Monday by day. They land on Sunday. So Sunday night, where are they? In the hotel. So where do they do their bedika? So many people say you do it in the hotel with a bracha. With a bracha. Rav Shmuel just paskin, you're not allowed to make a bracha. Because he says the cleaning is at such a high level, you're not allowed to make a bracha. What you could do is, we'll get in a moment, is you could have a meal there. You could come in. My mencha is in 3 minutes. You'll have a meal there beforehand. No, so Shmuel holds it's not enough.
Yeah.
Shmuel holds that's we learned back in footnote Aleph. He says even if you put down bread, it won't create a chiyuv. Mishnah base malam below yudalit. Ubadayit laza of the machras. The kanas base malam achal and eshachag. You go to a different hotel. And machabos a cheder chayiv live like below yudalit. So you're going to eat there, and then you're chayiv b'dika. Uvarich al b'dika. From loyachal sham karvet avrlam yit chashach has badik v'yivdik b'dika kal b'var b'ambli brach. So that's the eitzah. In those scenarios, on Sunday you eat chametz, and then you make a bracha there. If you look at footnote Vav, Hatam, what's the reason? You own it, chayiv livdaik. Of the place chayiv livdaik. Even according to Chassam Sefer, who argues this, and but in our case, you have the chiyuv bedika, and therefore you should eat something and make a bracha. And we'll finish in Siv Zayin and Siv Ches. He talks about bachrim in yeshiva. Ha bedika penimiya chal al bachurei hayeshiva. The bachrim have to do the bedika. Bachrim shebechol cheder v'chederchem lebedika kol cheder kimin kedein cheder shel shotfim. They have to check their own rooms. Bachar shadar be'ir shel hayeshiva v'yachol lagia lepenimiya bilel yudal v'levdoik. If he could go to his own room and check. Medina that is better. Adam Lahantu lives like a Yudavi Achsav Lel Yudal lives like Be'bracha. In Haraches, points out Rav Shmuel, Amar Rav Shidav Gav Sheish L'Chol Bachar Makom Yuchad L'Mitasav Yish L'Gam Shulcham Yuchad V'Arim Yuchad V'Rav Tashvishu Makom Levad Filachi Ein Dan Sheish Kan Gimel Makom the Fraud Chayv lives like Makom Shalai V'Shein Shayach L'Shav. Now I have to think that the way that they do is they just sell the whole thing. I think I don't think anyone actually does, they don't deal with this, because I think they just sell the whole thing, but that's only going to work in a place that no one's going to be there. I don't know the case he's talking about. We have 2 minutes, so let's just go drav weiter. Let's start Sif Aleph over here of Mechiras Chametz. Haminug. Sif Aleph is very important. A lot of people, especially a lot of people say, why do I have to do Mechira? I cleaned well. There's mamish no chametz. Haminug glasses called Seder Mechiras Chametz L'Nachi Gami Nika Basic Din Va'itzi Kol Chametz Rishusai. Even if you took all the chametz out of your shos, you cleaned amazingly. Still, you should do a bedika. He quotes the bottom of Shlomo Zalman. Rishmuel says, the vitamins. He says, you don't realize in your house all the tarefes chametzes that you have, and therefore, memanav shach, you should do the mechira. One last halacha, sif beis, and mechiras chametz gamor. Me'ikar adin, says Rishmuel, everyone's saying, am I allowed to sell chametz gamor? I heard this whole thing, I should sell. Says Rishmuel, me'ikar adin, lechatchila, you're allowed to sell chametz gamor, even though it's in your house. Obviously, you mark off the areas, etc. Yesh nayagin, shaloi limkar. If you look at footnote Beis, Rav Shmuel says that he himself at the end of here says that hu noig lahachmir. He lamayz machmir. Avshe medina shari lichatchila. It's a mamish lichatchila by those that have a minog. What's the reason for the minog? If you look at footnote Beis, he points out because there's shitas that say it should be in your house. The chametz, even if you're renting it, we know that we rent the actual area of the room, and therefore that takes care of the achshash. But okay, that's the chumrah, and we'll pick it up from here.